Yes.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Through storytelling and conversational interviews, this weekly radio show offers listeners firsthand insight into starting and running a business, the ups and downs of risk-taking, and the commonalities of successful people. Connect with Kerry through her candid, often funny, and informative weekly blog, where you'll read and can comment on life as wife, mother, daughter, and entrepreneur. And now it's time for Kerry McCoy to get all up in your business.
Thank you, Chris. Like Chris said, I'm Kerry McCoy, and it's time for me to get up in your business. Before we start, I want to introduce the people at the table. We have who you just heard from, Chris Cannon, my co-host, who will be managing the board and taking your calls. Say hello, Chris.
I will say hello. Hello.
And recording this show to make a podcast available next week is our technician, Jason Malik from Arise Studios in Conway, Arkansas. If you're sitting right now at your computer, you might want to watch us live on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. It's kind of fun to see what goes on behind the scenes. I'm waving to the camera right now. And between the breaks, it's reality radio. If for some reason you miss any part of today's show or want to hear it again, there's a way, and Chris is going to tell you how.
Listen to all UIYB past and present interviews by going to flagandbanner.com and clicking on Radio Show. Also, by joining our email list and liking us on Facebook, you'll get a reminder notification the day of the show with a sneak peek of that day's guest. Back to you, Kerry.
So last week, Chris, we had technical problems here at the studio.
We did.
And it wasn't really at the studio. It was out at Chenal, out at the towers. I think the transmitter got struck by lightning or something. So the show was not aired, but my guest and I came anyway. We were on the air. We recorded the show. It was Ryan Harris from Oxford American Magazine, and he talked about South on Main and all the music he has there. And I do want to mention that November the 6th, I believe it is, Arlo Guthrie is going to be coming to town in the Ron Robinson Theater. It's a very small venue. Comfortable chairs. You can watch Arlo Guthrie do his thing. I think November the 6th. Go to Oxford American website and check it out to find out the exact date. Don't trust me exactly on that, but it is the 1st of November. And find out the price of the tickets. Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, began as a platform, a small business owner like me and a guest to pay forward our experiential knowledge in a conversational way. Originally, my team and I thought it would appeal to entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs, but it seems to have a wider audience appeal because, after all, who isn't inspired by everyday people's American-made stories? To see people in their totality is humanizing. We all thirst to connect and make sense of an overcomplicated world. And on this show, we have the luxury of time to go deeper than a soundbite or a headline. It's no secret that successful people work hard, but other common traits found in many of my guests are the heart of a teacher, belief in a higher power, and creativity. My guest today's name, P. Allen Smith, and lifestyle are synonymous with creativity. Everyone wants to be him, or at least live like him. He is nationally recognized as a gardener, cook, author, and chicken farmer because for over 20 years he has come into our homes on his PBS TV show, or should I say shows, P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table. To support his passion for poultry, in 2009, he founded the Heritage Poultry Conservancy, where he works to educate the public and protect endangered species at his farm, Moss Mountain, high above the Arkansas River. If you haven't gone to one of his spring or fall events on the mountain, I recommend you put it on your bucket list. People come from all over the world to see what Mr. P. Allen Smith Jr. is showing, serving, and saying about this cottage industry. Today, we're going to hear the whole story and get tips on raising backyard chickens and urban gardening. It is a pleasure to welcome to the table my longtime friend, Mr. P. Allen Smith.
Kerry, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I want to tell everybody that I've been trying to pin you down for 2 years and that you are so busy, just like we said, hardworking, creative, and your, lifestyle is really complicated because you're outside, gardening, That's where your job is. But then you have to go inside and do the stuff that we all have to do at the desks, write books, do all that stuff. You're very, very busy.
Have to wear lots of hats, lots of different hats.
You sure do.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about all of them today. You were born in Arkansas, but raised in Tennessee for a little while. And then you moved back to Arkansas. You call yourself, I read this about you, a fourth-generation nurseryman and horticultural. Say that for me.
Horticulturist.
Horticulturist.
It's a tough word.
Tell our listeners about your father, your namesake, and how you followed not only in his footsteps, but generations before you, because you're 4 generations.
Well, it goes back to the Cumberland Plateau where my father's family comes from. And they came there, they actually came to this country in the 1680s through Charleston, the port of Charleston, and they made their way west. Like so many Europeans, they were English and they were greedy for land, and made their way to Middle Tennessee by the 1790s, and they've been there ever since. And there was after the Civil War, there was a great deal of economic instability, and the old crops that were raised by our family were difficult for them to make money with. It was principally tobacco and cotton. And so they began to produce fruit trees. And by the 1880s, a fellow by the name of Mr. Boyd, whose farm was next to the Smith farm, began a nursery. And it was, they were side by side. And legend has it that he began providing trees for a rather large property that was being built over in North Carolina called Biltmore. And so the family just really used the growing of trees and things like that as kind of a cash crop in the beginning. And then over the generations, they did more and more with nursery stock. And it became less about fruit trees and those kinds of things, and more about ornamentals. So by the time I came along, I had a keen interest in botany, and learned a lot about farming and horticulture on that very practical level, and just carried that through my career. And went to Hendrix and studied biology with an emphasis on botany. I just kind of knew a lot about plants, and it made it easy. Those courses were easy for me to take, I think.
Well, you grew up on a farm, right?
Right. And so then I went to England and studied garden history and design, master's program there, and then came back, and we, for a long time, had a nursery and had a design build company. And then in 93, I began a media company and began talking about the things I was doing every day, and helping answer questions about, what's going on with my tomatoes. And then that sort of, went into other aspects of life, and helping people make better choices to improve their lives through using no chemicals, or being very careful and using only organic methodologies and practices. And then over time, about 12 years ago, we bought Moss Mountain Farm, which goes back to the 1840s. As you mentioned, it's high above the Arkansas River Valley. And there we use that as really kind of a studio set that enables us to help people understand how to grow things. We have kitchens there as a studio where we prepare healthy meals, and we show how to, I like very simple meals. So we have a rule that, only 5 ingredients. We try to bring everything out of the garden. So it's very much a show about, healthy living, really, because I think that connectivity to nature, that growing something is good for our souls. And I think that, the good food that we eat that isn't local. I mean, when it's locally grown, when you know where it's coming from, there's
like the old days.
There's a reassurance, for me at least, and I know a lot of people feel this way today with industrial agriculture, that, when you can buy it locally and you can know the farmer, not only are you getting something that you know how it was grown, where it was grown, but you build a relationship with someone. And that's so important. Socialization is so important. That leads me to the fact that we opened the farm about 7 years ago to these tours where we invite people from around the country who have followed the show now I can't believe we're already producing we're in the throes of our 20th season on PBS.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so these folks are coming in, to see the farm. And we had a big group this morning, and I had lunch with them before coming in to see you.
See how busy he is? That's sweet of you to come.
And then we had we'll have another big group tomorrow, and then next week we have Thursday and Fridays booked, and we have 1,500 master gardeners coming on Saturday with Janet Carson, who's a big leader in master gardening here in Arkansas. And so we're just we really enjoy sharing the farm and that social component, that interaction. This virtual stuff has its place, but you just can't beat meeting people and having that one-on-one time with them.
I know it. Do you still have the farm in Tennessee?
Well, there are multiple farms.
But the one that you grew up on?
No, we don't. The one I grew up on is in a place called Daylight. My great grandparents lived at Dark Hollow, and all of my brothers, my father's brothers and sisters
are still there.
Yeah, except for one.
So you moved to Arkansas when you were 12.
Right. Yes.
Your dad got a job offer?
Yes. He moved. We moved from the farm back to Arkansas.
What was he going to do? Was he not going to farm anymore?
Well, he actually never really embraced farming completely. He
skipped that generation.
This is what happens, you see. I mean, this happened in the 70s. What happened is the small family farm began to change.
Yeah.
And it became difficult for people to make a living on the farm. And so what you had are these folks who would farm on weekends, and that's what my dad had. We had about 100 acres, and he had cattle, and we had a big garden, and we did row crops and this kind of thing, and poultry and swine and all of it, And so it was really something he wanted to kind of go back to because he grew up that way. And so we moved. He got a job offer and wanted to come here and find a farm for us. But sadly, what happened is he had back surgery and then had a blood clot from back surgery and had a pulmonary embolism and died when he was 37.
Wow.
So my mother raised us, all four of us, children here in Little Rock. And then, as I mentioned, I went on to Hendrix after graduating from high school.
How old were you when he died?
13.
Isn't that how you kind of I read somewhere that you kind of, as therapy, decided you were going to put chickens in your backyard?
Well, that's true. I mean, we had just come from a farm, and the idea was to find a farm, but there was, that takes a while. And so my parents bought a house in the suburbs, and I was just adamant that I was going to bring some of my animals with me. I wasn't going to give them all up. So I brought some chickens and a pair of turkeys, and we brought our dogs and a cat and a parakeet, and so I started a farm, and in the backyard, and I made a garden, and I built coops for my chickens, and my neighbors were extremely generous and kind in allowing me to have this little agri-hood.
That's a coined phrase right there.
In our midst, and it was wonderful, and it was really a way for me to stay connected to that life I'd had before losing my father.
And it was therapeutic.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and that's why I'm a big believer in being in the garden and having that time to really think about the Creator and think about your place in the world and to watch these amazing things grow and bloom. I mean, it's just
satisfying.
A miracle every day.
It's hard work, though. Let's just be honest. It's hard work.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with hard work.
That's true.
Yeah, I like it.
You do. Yeah. You went to college, like you said, at Hendrix, and then when you graduated, you decided to jump on the opportunity to study abroad, but there was no internet back then.
Oh, no.
How did you figure out where to go and what to do?
Well, there was in those days you wrote letters, and it was really through a series of phone calls and calling universities and working out the time difference and calling these places, and everyone was very kind.
But didn't you apply somewhere and didn't get in and ended up getting accepted. I think I remember this from coming out to one of your tours where you were telling everybody that you applied at one place for a college.
Yes.
And didn't get it.
Well, what I wanted to study landscape design.
Okay.
And I had hoped to go to a school in Cheltenham, which was in the southern part of England, and they didn't really have a design course. It was more of an ag school, which really interested me. But then a friend in England who became a friend recommended the University of Manchester that in the School of Architecture, in the Department of Town and Country Planning, they did landscape architecture and garden history. So that's how it came about.
Perfect fit for you.
Yeah.
And
it worked out that way.
Yeah, it did. And they just sent you a little tri-folded pamphlet and said, come here. And you said, okay, you filled out the form and mailed it off and said, I'll see y'all later. I don't even really know where I'm going.
That's the way it worked.
That's the way it worked back then.
Yeah.
That was a leap of faith.
Yeah, you just do it.
You didn't get to go online and Google and look around at the dorm rooms or see where you're.
I had no idea.
Yeah, you just got on a.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Did you get on a boat or did they have airplanes invented back then?
Well, that's really dating me.
You were there for 18 months?
Yes, almost 2 years, yes.
Did you do private tour guides? Were you a tour guide there, or did you do private tours there, or did you just study?
No, we just studied, yeah. So it was really going around and looking at, a big part of what I did was to look at gardens of the 18th century. I was particularly interested in gardens that Jefferson and Adams had seen on an English garden tour they'd taken in 1786. They decided, while they waited on an appointment with King George, to go on this tour of gardens. Jefferson had kept a book called Observations on Modern Gardening by Whately in his library. He had a 1771 copy, and it was sort of the latest and greatest gardens of England. And so he took that as a guide, and they went around and looked at these gardens within a certain distance of London. Probably the furthest away, they went to near Birmingham and saw a great place called Hagley, and another garden called, it was William Shenstone. He was a poet at the time, to see his garden.
So if I wanted to go on that tour, I could still Google it up and find out what that tour is, the Jefferson tour?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could, but a lot of the places are no longer there. I mean, like Shenstone's garden, the Lisos, is a lovely municipal golf course. But some of the great houses are still there, like Zion House in London, which is owned by the Duke of Northumberland. Chiswick House, which is a beautiful house. It was the Earl of Burlington, Richard III Earl of Burlington's house. And
how did all this change you?
Well,
from a country boy in the South.
I think travel changes everyone. It was an opportunity to see a different place, a different world, a way in which, people view things. It's different. And
I'm surprised you didn't stay.
And then, I went abroad and went to Italy and France while I was there, and Belgium, and tried to see as many places as I could, and now I go back frequently.
Because you've met some really highfalutin friends over there, haven't you?
Well, I guess so, yeah.
You have, haven't you?
Well, I have. Yeah, they're great. They've been great. Influenced my career tremendously, yeah.
So I think this is a great place for us to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Mr. Paul Allen Smith, Jr. of the PBS TV show P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table. In this next segment, we'll have him tell us about his road to fame, from a local ornamental nursery on Stagecoach Road in Little Rock, Arkansas, to nationally recognized expert on heritage chickens, gardening, and farm-to-table cooking. If you want to meet and learn from Alan, there's a way. He is going to tell us about some upcoming tours on his farm, Moss Mountain, overlooking the Arkansas River. Here he hosts people, I'm telling you, from all ilks and all over, and doles out tips on urban gardening, cooking, and raising backyard chickens. The rest of the story after the break. Want to create excitement for your business or event? Do it with affordable advertising from Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. We have teardrop banners, retractable banners, and table drapes. We have street pole banners, museum and exhibit banners. We have custom flags, event tents, tailgating poles, auto graphics, and window scrimp. And don't forget, welcome home and sale banners. consult the experts at arkansasflagandbanner.com. Go online for a free quote or drop by our historic showroom at 800 West 9th Street in Little Rock.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. Over 40 years ago, with only $400, Kerry founded Arkansas Flag and Banner. During the last 4 decades, the business has grown and changed, starting with door-to-door sales, then telemarketing, to mail order and catalog sales. And now a third of their sales come through the internet. This past year, Flag and Banner added another internet feature, live chatting. Over time, Kerry's business and leadership knowledge grew. As early as 2004, she began sharing this knowledge in her weekly blog. In 2009, she founded the nonprofit Friends of Dreamland Ballroom, and then in 2014, Brave Magazine. Today, she has branched out into radio with this very production, podcast, and live stream on Facebook. Each week on this show, you'll hear candid conversations between her and her guest about real-world experiences on a variety of businesses and topics that we hope you'll find interesting and inspiring. If you'd like to ask Kerry a question or share your story, send an email to questions@upyourbusiness.org. That's questions with an S at upyourbusiness.org, or send her a message on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with Mr. Paul Allen Smith Jr., author of not 1, but 5 lifestyle books. I meant to bring one today that I have of yours, just to remind you that I have one. Founder of Heritage Poultry Conservancy and producer, star of the P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table broadcasts on PBS. Before the break, we talked about Allen's life growing up on a farm, being in Tennessee, the heritage, your family's four,
yes,
your family's four generations of farmers and ornamental horticulture. I can't say this word, horticulturist.
Horticulturist or
horticulturist.
There you go.
I do this a lot on this show. If anybody listens very much, there's a few words I'm just not very good at. So now you've come back home from England, and we also talked about how you went to school in England. Now you've come back home from England, and this is when I met you. You had just opened Burnham Woods, and you came into Arkansas Flag and Banner and wanted to do a swap for some, I don't know if you remember this, for some banners to hang in your nursery. And you said you'd come out and put some ornamental plants and stuff in my backyard. And I was like, I don't know this guy, but you and I hit it off so good that I was like,
right.
Okay. And then when he came out and decorated my garden, I was like, oh my gosh, I think I got the best deal out of this whole thing. It was off the chart, and you have not stopped since. So when you opened this nursery, did you ever think that it was going to lead to where it led to now? Did you have this in mind at all?
No, not really. You never know how things are going to make a turn in the road, life that is. So I loved creating that garden for you in the back. That was great fun. And we deployed some, I think, creative ideas there, and it turned it into a fun place. And that's really what we do, is we try to create beautiful spaces for people where they can, enjoy and connect. And that's very important. But we did have a nursery, and I had no idea at the time that I would be entering into media at some point. But really how all that started, Kerry, was out of my interest in sharing this knowledge that I'd learned in England.
The heart of a teacher.
I had the good fortune to connect with the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society. There's that word again. Mm-hmm. And they had a series of exams that you took to become a certified fellow at the time, and I did that with the RHS. I remain a member of the Royal Horticultural Society and a life member of the Rare Breed Survival Trust in England. And so I just really wanted to share information and started doing these workshops at our nursery on Saturdays. Oh. And they just grew in popularity. And,
I think you trained everybody in town, because really? Nobody's gardens looked the way they do today. You could spot your gardens a mile away, and pretty soon a lot of nurseries were following your lead.
Well, I think that we did make an impact in the market in a lot of ways, or in a few ways at least. I mean, one was sort of thinking about gardens in a different way, and then also bringing back a lot of great plants that we had sort of forgotten. If you went into a nursery in the early 80s, if you were looking for perennials, you might find daylilies and hostas, and that would be it. Well, of course, being in England, it had opened my eyes to these amazing gardens and the variety of plants were being used, and they were using a lot of native plants that grew right here in our roadsides.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was quite a moment for me to recognize that. So I began doing teaching, and then there was a host of a radio show, Sharon Lee on KARN, who came. She was very interested in gardens and gardening. She and her husband, and she said, "Look, we should do a radio show together." And so we started doing a radio show
once a week
for a couple of years, once a week for a couple of years. And then our hour got bumped when Rush Limbaugh went from 1 hour to 2 hours. And at that very time, I actually got a phone call from KATV, Channel 7. And they said, "We're looking for someone to come in and talk about country western music, automotive repair, and gardening." And I said, "Well, if it's not all the same person, I might be able to help you, but I'd be at a loss talking about country western music or automotive repair. But I could give gardening a go." And so I went in and
Is it hard to prepare?
Well, I didn't prepare. I didn't know how to prepare. I'd never been in front of a television camera in my life. And so I just went in and auditioned. I thought I was absolutely awful. And, being basically an introvert, it was a harrowing experience. And but they called me back and said, "We want you to come in." And I would just come in and talk about whatever was going on in the garden.
Did you have to bring props with you?
Well, I would, a few things, a tomato hornworm or something like that to show people.
You mean a real worm?
Or roses that were blooming, things that were dead or dying, and explain why. And
that's
bring
kind of
things that
opposite of what other people would do.
Well, it was, it was really sort of get right to it in 2 minutes, help people solve a problem. And so I just, over time, these became very popular with Channel 7. And I had the idea of maybe syndicating these and moving into syndication with these little short 90-second spots. And that's how we got started. We formed a production company in 1993. And with some friends who were very supportive, and they helped me get started with that.
So you had partners.
Yep, and then we grew from there. We did the segments, the little 90-second reports, for about 8 years, and grew their popularity and our coverage over about 250 stations around the country. And then those stations started asking for a 30-minute show because I was showing up in the local news at noon, or the morning show. It was, considered soft news. And what was so interesting early on, the news directors had to decide whether they wanted it or not, because it was a 90-second report and it was in the news.
And nobody was doing that, were they?
Well, there was a fellow that was underway with a food-focused 90-second insert, they were called, or interstitial. And his name was Mr. Food, and he would talk about, different kinds of recipes and foods and things like that. And so I sort of took that model, 90 seconds, and developed it, focused on organic principles, gardening, things that you can use around the house that are that allowed you to do the kinds of things you need to do without using hard chemicals, things that were good for your pets and that sort of thing.
Like tobacco. Epsom salt.
Well, tobacco, you want to keep your dogs from smoking.
Well, no, but tobacco around your bottom of your plant, or it can be, you can put it in your water and spray your plants with tobacco in it.
Right. Yeah.
And Epsom salt's a great fertilizer.
It is, those kinds of things.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yep, right. And using dishwashing liquid, to help use that as an insecticide, those kinds of things. And then we started doing simple recipes with food that people could do.
So is it so every week you gave a new 90-second commercial and you put it out to your to 250 or TV stations for about 8 years. Was it hard to keep coming up with stuff, or did you just repeat the same material over and over and over? Because the years cycle through and you kind of the same problems over and over.
No, we did one per day.
One per day?
And so each station got 5 a week. So every weekday there was a new one that aired. And so we did.
How long before you started making money? Because that's a lot of people to record and edit and put up.
It was a huge amount of content.
Yes.
For 8 years.
For 90 seconds, how much do you have to shoot? How long do you have to shoot a commercial or a spot to get 90 good seconds?
Well, it got shorter over time, but in the beginning it took a long time.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what I was doing.
So how long before your investors and you started making a profit?
Well, it really took about 5 years, and we began to talk to sponsors, and people became interested in it. The Weather Channel picked it up, and the segments.
So were you giving it for free?
Well, that's what we did in the beginning.
You just gave it away for free, thinking someday somebody's going to start advertising with me.
Yeah, that's the way we started. And we had to convince them that this was a good...
People always think entrepreneurs just are born with it the way it is and that they were just born successful.
No, you have to grow it. You have to grow it from really nothing, from tiny little seeds of ideas into big productive plants.
5 years.
Yeah, so you have to also be patient, I think. And I think quality is also very important. Keep the quality up. And that was something that was always a hallmark of what we tried to do. And the thing that about these stations that was so interesting is that the news directors in the beginning, they said, no, we really want news that is a little more dramatic, maybe something that'll boost ratings. And they'd use phrases like, well, if it bleeds, it leads.
Right.
That's the kind of thing they want. I said, well, wait a minute. I think there are people out there, particularly in the morning and maybe on the noon show. Why don't we think about news you can use? And that's what we do.
I like it. News you can use.
And so that was sort of our motto. That we developed that and began helping people with these kinds of things that would make their life a little better and healthier. Yeah.
So when you first go to talk to people and tell them you want to give them this 90-second spot, do you go to each station, or do you go to? Is there a way you can go and reach all of them at one time to give your pitch? I mean, do you have to go and sell every station?
Well, the internet, Al Gore just invented the internet, and so it was just getting started, and so. We were online and we were sending emails and things like that, but it wasn't nearly as developed, of course, as it is today. But really, it was through a network of stations. For instance, they were owned by one group, and there might be 7 or 8 stations in those days. And we were on Channel 7, and they were so helpful at Channel 7. Dale Nicholson was fantastic.
Yes, he was.
And he was a big supporter of what we were doing. And Bob Doubleday was amazing. He was the former executive manager of Channel 7. And, Dale was fantastic. And so he knew people, he knew stations. They were at that time owned by, I think, All Britain. All Britain had other properties, other stations around the country, and so they shared the idea. And then we put together a news director advisory board where we could bring them together and on a phone call and just give us advice. And
News Directory Advisor Board.
Well, we just picked 7 of the top news directors and brought them together. These were influencers. They knew a lot of people, and we asked them to come and be a part of
they just said, okay?
Yeah.
Because successful people love to teach.
And so we wanted to understand better that landscape, that news landscape, and they were so helpful.
And they were all local. And they were all local?
No, they came from different places.
So you just did a conference call?
We do conference calls, but in some cases, many of them came to see us. And then we've kept in touch with those news directors. Many of them have retired now, but that goes way back to 1994 and 95.
When did you you started off as just Alan Smith's Gardens, and you put the P in there after a little while. Why did you decide to do that?
No, that's not true.
Is that not true? That's what I thought I remembered.
I went to Hendrix, and they made me P. Allen Smith.
Because there was another Allen?
There was another Allen Smith. And so I was the president of the student body. And the year that I was president, they put the P in front as a way to distinguish me from others. And Bob Doubleday really liked the idea of the initial P in front.
Oh.
And, when you've got a vanilla name like Allen Smith, you've got to spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the P stuck.
Well, I figured that's why.
But it's always been P. Allen Smith when we started the production.
Always.
Yeah.
So you, in the very beginning, I think you started producing not at Moss Mountain. You were producing at your cottage in downtown Little Rock.
Well, we did, and my then partners had a beautiful kitchen, and we used the kitchen, and we used gardens. We would go and knock on doors and say, "You have a beautiful garden," or my clients who had been so good to me, and we'd made gardens for them. We'd use those, or we would tape in my garden downtown, of which we still have.
Yeah,
it's that same studio set. And we kept that until we still keep it, but we do tape there probably every other week.
Really?
Some pieces from that garden. It's so handy to our offices and studio
that are down there.
And then 12 years ago, we moved out to Moss Mountain with a lot of our production because of the just the construction of the farm and the fact that there's an opportunity there with such diversity to find good content and demonstrate good practices of stewardship and taking care of plants and growing things and doing it organically.
It's wonderful to walk around that place. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
You bought that house, in downtown Little Rock for $1,000. You bought the lot. Then you bought a house for $1.
No. I traded a landscape project for the lot. And I bought the house for $1 and had it moved onto the site and restored it.
There's creativity. I mean, the guy cannot stop.
Yeah,
You're pretty modest about everything, too. I have to kind of drag everything out of you. When I started talking about that cottage house, if it had been me, the first thing I'd have said was, I bought that for $1.
Well, what I always say is it's amazing what you can do to, people, you show before and after pictures and their jaw drops.
Yeah.
But, it's incredible what you can do with a coat of paint and $300,000, so.
Where'd you get $300,000?
Well, I don't know. Over time. I'm just making a point about so many of these reality shows, right. Well, anybody can do that.
Yeah. Your production company keeps you so busy all the time, I guess. It sounds like you video every day almost.
Well, not every day, but they are doing production every day. So I'm not always in every piece we shoot. So it may be that I do an intro to it and they'll go visit an interesting place or get a story where maybe I can't go, but that gets integrated into the show. And then I'll do the opens and the wraps and that kind of thing. And then I'll do segments within the show. And just like today, they've got, we were doing this piece for just talk about heritage turkeys, these great breeds or colors of turkeys that were a part of our heritage and our agricultural legacy. And so the show is about that. We had Frank Reese from Kansas as a guest who came down to the farm. We interviewed Frank. He's kind of considered the father of heritage poultry. They just did there's a documentary out that you saw called Eating Animals where Frank is featured there. He's sort of the hero farmer in that documentary.
Hero farmer, I like that.
Yeah, isn't that good? Mm-hmm. And so we're doing this 30-minute show on the importance of the conservation of genetics. People say, well, you love chickens. I really do, but it's the genetics that I find so interesting and important. And the poultry too. It's just stunning for people to walk into and see our poultry collection. And it's I've been around this my whole life, and so I'm like, okay. But what I love about it is that it's opening up a world that people didn't really know existed. And we're now 3 and 4 generations away from the farm, and people have no idea how wonderful these animals are and how they populated our ancestors' farms. And I'm not talking just about poultry. I'm talking about sheep and swine. And so I'm a life member of the American Livestock Conservancy, the Livestock Conservancy as it's called.
So would you say that when you purchased Moss Mountain, I think you said 12 years ago, would you say that was a labor of love or a business decision?
Well, I think it was a labor of love.
I bet.
Yeah,
it's expensive.
It takes a lot to run a farm, and it takes a lot to develop it in a way.
And you don't really sell
feel
anything off that farm, do you?
Well, we do. We have a gift shop, and we have lots of tours, and we don't really produce
anything though,
except content.
Interesting. That is so 21st century.
We're a content farm.
A real farm full of content. Yeah, but do you sell your chickens at all?
We have a sale twice a year for our genetics. People are very interested in it because they're very. We've worked hard at trying to bring a lot of these breeds back. Many of them were on the precipice of extinction, and so we've really worked to bring them not only back but also to bring them up to standard, the standard that they were in the late 19th century.
Yeah. Do you think somebody today could start the way you started, 90 seconds?
Well, I think they're doing it all over with the internet. I mean, with YouTube and things like that. I think it carries on. I think there's
Maybe
opportunities out there. It may very well be, yeah.
But there's more noise. There's more competition.
Well, everybody that has a cell phone is a content producer now.
Well, that's true. All right, this is a great place to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mr. Paul Allen Smith, Jr. of the PBS TV shows P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table. In this next segment, we're going to talk chickens, best practices for starting your own backyard brood. He is an expert on breeds, as you've been hearing, and the exotic chicks that are still available to purchase and raise. And last, we'll get some tips on urban gardening and talk about the benefits of the current farm-to-table lifestyle movement. But first, I want to remind everyone we're broadcasting live every Friday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Time on both KABF 88.3 FM, the voice of the people, and flagandbanner.com's Facebook page. And that after 1 week of every show's airing, a podcast is made available on all popular listening sites and YouTube. We'll be back after the break. Boost morale and patriotism with a new flag or flagpole from Arkansas's flagandbanner.com. We have poles, hardware, accessories, maintenance support, installation, and custom flags. We have flags of all kinds. For the sports enthusiast, the world traveler, or history buff, we have them all. Bring in your old flag and get $5 off a new one. Consult the experts at arkansasflagandbanner.com. Come shop our historic location at 800 West 9th Street in Little Rock or visit us online at flagandbanner.com.
Flagandbanner.com is proud to underwrite Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, where listeners are offered firsthand insight into the humanity and commonalities of successful people shared in a conversational interview with Kerry. Along with this radio show, Flagandbanner.com publishes a free biannual magazine called Brave. First published in October 2014, Brave magazine harnesses the power of storytelling and human empowerment. The Department of Arkansas Heritage recognized Brave magazine's documentation of American life and microfishes all editions for the Arkansas State Archives. Subscribe to this free periodical by going to flagandbanner.com and selecting magazine.
You're listening to Up in Your Business with me, Kerry McCoy, and I'm speaking today with the creative entrepreneur, Mr. P. Allen Smith, Jr., author, orator, cook, founder of Heritage Poultry Conservancy, and producer, star, and I think director of the P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table TV shows on PBS. If you've got a question, make a comment on flagandbanner.com's Facebook page or write this number down and call
501-433-0088.
One more time, Chris.
501-433-0088.
And if you're shy, you could just creep on my weekly blog about life as a small business owner at flagandbanner.com, or as I said earlier, listen to our podcasts. I want to take this opportunity to give a big shout out and a thank you to Centennial Bank for partnering with the Friends of Dreamland Ballroom and sponsoring this year's Dancing into Dreamland, which is Friday, November the 2nd. Tickets and a few tables are available online. We sold some more tables last night, but I think there's still some left. Before the break, we talked about Alan's life and how he ended up being a farmer. Then we talked about how he ended up, but then we talked about how you ended up being this mass media, multimedia person. It's just a fascinating story. And it just, everything that you talked about harkens back to the very beginning of the show, where we talked about everybody that comes on the show works hard, has the heart of a teacher, and is creative. And I mean, Alan has hit every one of those on the head. So let's talk about the Heritage Poultry Conservancy that you founded, I think, maybe 8 years ago?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, it really sprung out of the fact that when, we talked about my early childhood and my life moving from the farm into the city and the changes that occurred at that point in my family with my father passing away and me kind of hanging on to that farm just in a small way in the backyard. Well, I began to show poultry. I couldn't keep a cow. I couldn't show swine, but I could keep a few chickens.
In the suburbs.
In the suburbs. And so here I had my mom was raising 4 kids by herself, and she really didn't have a lot of mind share to give to me doing all sorts of things. So anything I could do in the backyard or with poultry, it was something I could really do myself. And I learned a lot from mentors and so forth. Well, fast forward to about 10 years ago, I went to the state fair and was talking to the supervisor at the poultry show, and I was making my rounds and looking at all the livestock, which I like to do. And went into the building at the time, and there were just not that many great birds. And I just told the supervisor, this looks so different than it did when we were showing. What happened to we had the great old breeders that were bringing in these amazing sort of examples of the breeds. And he said, well, we just don't have a lot of kids involved. The numbers are really dropping. And I said, well, what can we do about that? So we had a meeting with the fair board, of which I'm a member of the state fair board now. And I said, let's see what we can do to raise some money. And I said, well, give me an example of what a champion rooster might win. And it was like $12 or something like that. And I said, yeah, we need to work on that.
Yeah.
And so
that's not much incentive.
So I said, tell me, what does the champion steer get? Those could be sold at that time for $1,200, something like that. And I said, well, we really need to bolster this with the poultry and the poultry kids, because the way I felt about it, Kerry, was that there are a lot of kids out there that don't have the resources to be able to keep dairy cattle or beef cattle or horses and this sort of thing. And it takes a certain amount of economic resources to be able to make that kind of thing happen.
And no hoofed animals in the city.
Well, no, that's right. Unfortunately,
and you got that.
I would have had those if I could. But anyway, I just felt like that rabbits and poultry were a way to really let kids get involved and raise something and participate in the show world and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So we raised the money. We bought new cages and, kind of spruced up the space and got what they needed. And I said, I want these ribbons that these kids get to be bigger than the beef cattle. I want them to be the biggest ribbons given. And so now these ribbons are absolutely outrageous. They're huge rosettes, bigger than the kids. And
they love that.
Yeah, they do. And then we've got these big, gorgeous trophies, and where their name goes on it if they win best of show. And so that's been going on now, and it's a pair of big silver pieces that my mother had, and so we had those made into trophies. So now the kids get their names put on them, or the winner, and then we have the prize money. So that champion.
It's not $12 anymore.
It's not $12. It's it can be anywhere from $150 to $250.
That's a lot of money for a kid.
It is, and a lot of these kids. I mean, I'm telling you, some of them are so good at raising the poultry now. They're taking home $1,000.
Wow, are they in the city? These kids
in
the city?
A lot of them are, or in smaller. Maybe some come from Saline County, Bryant Benton. It's the state fairs. They come from all over the state. Yeah, but we do have some kids from North Little Rock and Little Rock.
There's something about taking care of an animal that teaches kids about responsibility.
Sure, absolutely.
And you want a dog, but they are a lot of work. They are very needy. They're very social. You have to be home. You have to do things with them. But a chicken,
and their eggs aren't as good as chickens.
and their eggs aren't as good.
Yeah.
But the poultry, but the chickens or the poultry, you can, lock them up at night, and
you better.
You better. Yeah, that's right. But you can lock them up if you go on vacation for a while. You can. They're not as needy.
Yeah, they're automatic feeders and waterers and that kind of thing. They're easy to take care of.
But you have that responsibility that you better lock them up at night, or the raccoon's going to come get them,
That's
even
right.
in the city.
Right. That's exactly right.
And you get one of them eaten, which we raised chickens in our yard in the Hillcrest neighborhood, and you get one of them eaten, that kid feels pretty bad the next day.
This whole backyard poultry phenomena has been interesting.
I think you're part of it. You're part of the reason, I think.
Well, I don't know about that. I feel like that we really took a trend, something I knew something about, and we've amplified it. We've certainly raised the awareness, and we've raised the awareness of these heritage breeds. And so what we're now trying to do is tie in these breeds, we call them breeds with needs, with these kids that are interested, and so they're raising these breeds that need to be, the population needs to come up and for us to sustain them.
So why do you think they need to be saved?
Well, I think the main reason for me is just genetic diversity. If you go down a very narrow path genetically with any food source for our food system, it becomes more and more precarious. And so we have these great seed banks where we are saving cereal grains, we're saving legumes, and all, the world's wheat and all of this. And we have these seed banks in Norway and Colorado and England and various places.
Are you saving your poultry's DNA?
Well, that's part of the conservancy, yes.
But can you actually save the DNA?
Well, there is some work being done to cryogenically attempt to do this, where the ovum, the egg, and the sperm is saved. They're doing this with mammalian genetics. And there's a place called Swiss Village Farm in Rhode Island that was funded by Dorrance Hamilton, who was the Campbell Soup heiress. And she gathered together for a period of almost 15 years lots of these great herds of swine, goats, sheep, cattle, both beef and dairy, and even to some degree horses and so forth. And they cryogenically have conserved the sperm and egg of these mammalian species or varieties of heritage animals so that they could be put into a surrogate at some point, 400 years into the future, and that variety, say it's a Beltway cow or belted gateway cow, they would be able to.
All you'd have to really do, I guess chickens have sperm, I don't know, but all you have to do is save sperm, and then, like you said, put it into a surrogate, and you've started it off again.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that.
There's a guy who owns a polo. There's a polo star. He's real hot. I saw him on 60 Minutes, and he saved the sperm from his horse that they had to put down, and he has started a whole line of polo horses using his horse that was so good.
Well, that's commonly done. It has been done for a long time with AI, artificial insemination.
There you go.
But
it's not the same.
But to cryogenically try to conserve the ovum, an egg, freeze it, and the sperm is challenging with avian genetics. And so that's not to say they're not doing it now, because I'm not on the cutting edge of that personally, but I know they're attempting to do that. Now, that would be a great breakthrough. And so in the interim, what we do is we hatch every year. We reproduce them. We pick out the best ones. So we are conserving them. That's the only way we know to do it.
How many breeds do you have on your farm?
We have about of chickens, ducks, geese, and turkeys. We have probably 60 varieties.
That's a lot.
Yeah. There's a lot of need. There are a lot of these birds need conservation.
Do the eggs, are they different? The eggs you would eat from different breeds, or is it kind of all the same?
No, the eggs. The flavor of an egg is largely dictated by what the animal's consuming.
Oh.
And so if you feed it pizza, it's going to taste like a pizza. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But if they're eating a lot of onion and that kind of thing, or garlic, there may be a little hint of that comes through.
Really?
But just a little bit. But the by and large, it's really what they're fed. That's what colors the yolk. You see these really dark, rich colored yolks.
Yes.
It's from them eating
Spinach.
Corn or pumpkins. We feed all the end of the season. We feed all our pumpkins to them.
Well, and I want to tell people, we're running out of time, but I really want to quickly say that I'm talking to P. Allen Smith on Up in Your Business with me, and he's an author and he's also the producer and star of his show, P. Allen Smith's Garden Home and P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table TV shows on PBS. So if I wanted to start a chicken farm, or a chicken, not a chicken farm, but if I want to start backyard chickens in my backyard,
Sure.
would you buy the chickens would you buy the chicks on the internet? And what time of year would you start?
Well, sure, you could do that. I mean, the fall's a good time as long as you live in a place where you don't have a harsh winter. The spring is an obvious time. But what we find is that when we have our visitors, we're open now till Christmas every Thursday and Friday. And so we have...
You can just come out there every Thursday and Friday?
No.
Oh.
You make an appointment and you come for lunch and a tour of the house and a tour of the heritage poultry and a tour of the cottage and the farm. And you
learn about it.
And you learn about it. And so there are opportunities there to get some ideas on how we house them and that kind of thing. And so I encourage people to do research and go and have a look around.
Because they need light.
Yes.
And they need heat.
Well, as chicks they do, but I mean most of these are landrace breeds that really are tough. I mean we have Brahmas from Tibet, from the Himalayas, and so they're very, very cold tolerant. We have Minorcas and white-faced black Spanish from the Iberian Peninsula who can really take the heat. So these are the genetics of these things are amazing.
That's so exotic.
Yeah. Well,
but they don't buy chicks out at your place. So they come out there and they learn about it at your place.
Well, we have a workshop. Throughout the season, through the fall, we'll do workshops. We just had a poultry workshop where we talked about these heritage breeds. And then we'll do one in the spring. And so what people should do is go to our website, look at when we're open, and look at the lessons that we're teaching. We'll have classes on beekeeping. We'll have, goat soap making. We have lots of our farmer friends come and talk about some of the things they produce, and we do that at lunch. So it's a lunch and learn, and I want to do that. And we'll do tablescaping or decorating and that kind of thing. We'll have artists there painting. It's really a place to come and enjoy nature, enjoy a farm, have a great meal, connect and meet some people of like mind, and see something creative going on, and go away with something new and fresh, and so hopefully that'll inspire you.
And this is the time of year to do it.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, October is a wonderful month in Arkansas.
Wonderful.
As is November.
It is.
And then we have Holly Chappell coming for Christmas, and she's a fantastic floral designer par excellence who's coming.
And her name's Holly. Is that a real name?
Well, that's why we chose her for Christmas.
Holly Chappell.
And she's going to be doing a flower, all the decor for the farm for Christmas this year.
Everybody wants your life, Alan, but it's hard.
We had Jay Swanky last year. He does a wonderful job, and he's a great friend.
So what's your email address?
It's pallensmith.com. Just go to the website, and you can see we also have a line of flowers. So if you're interested in anything that we grow at the farm, we produce it and ship it to you. So we have peonies for sale right now, all the tulip collections, the daffodils, everything. You can go online and you can order those direct. We'll ship them right to you. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, we just ordered Gray just ordered a bunch of daffodils to put in our yard. We're going to come out there and get some of yours.
Good. Well, no, we'll ship them to you.
Or shipping to me. But the drive out's beautiful out to Moss Mountain, y'all. If you live in the area, what do you want?
Or not? Come see us from out of state.
Well, when I was there, you said, "How far is the farthest person here?" And somebody raised their hand and said, "Wisconsin."
Yeah. Well, today it was Hawaii.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that fun? I mean, right here in our backyard, we've got you. I just love it. I love you. But let me ask you this. What do you want people to take away from this interview today? Because you are a teacher, and you've told us so many things.
Well, I think that if they're in business and they're entrepreneurs, it's really just be yourself, and to follow your dream and not give up. Be persistent. Also, I think we're all in a service industry in some place, in some way, I should say. And the idea of having a good team of people around you, that's so important.
It really is.
I had lunch with Dan Cathy yesterday at Chick-fil-A headquarters, and
where's that?
It's in Atlanta, and so
he just flew in.
Yeah, and so he was talking about sort of the secret to his success, and he said it's very simple. He said, we're really not selling chicken; we're selling hospitality, and he made it was so important for me to hear yet again. It's something I really believe in, is that you start with a great team, and that great team makes your customer feel good.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you, Kerry, and congratulations with all your success.
Thank you.
Best wishes going forward.
Thank you. Give me his gift right there. Look, we got you a garden flag and a garden stand because
my goodness, look at this.
And the banner for everybody on Facebook, they can see it's got chickens.
Oh my God, of course it does. That is wonderful.
And the backside's
and it's perfect for the holidays.
It is for Holly coming to town. What's her name?
Holly Chappell. Yes.
Here,
so come see the Christmas decorations at Moss Mountain Farm starting right after Thanksgiving.
I think I will. I think I'm going to come out in October, though. I just love this time of the year. Chris?
Yes.
Who's our guest next week?
Democratic nominee for House of Representative, Mr. Clark Tucker, who's running against incumbent Representative French Hill.
You know what? I think that's the week after next. I just remembered I'm out of town next week. Son Jack is getting having knee surgery in Ohio, and I think I'm going to go up and play nursemaid to him. So I think we're doing a rerun next week. I know, right? I love it. Next week, I think we're going to replay Warwick Sabins.
Okay.
Because he's running for mayor, and we had him on earlier this year. So I think we're going to replay Warwick Sabin, and then we'll have Clark Tucker on the week after that. I'd like to give another shout out to Centennial Bank for partnering with the Friends of Dreamland Ballroom and sponsoring this year's Dancing into Dreamland Friday, November the 2nd. Tickets and tables are still available online. If you have a great entrepreneurial story that you would like to share, I would love to hear from you. Send a brief bio or your contact info to
questions at upyourbusiness.org. That's questions with an S at upyourbusiness.org.
And finally, to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us. My hope today is that you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and I can't believe if you didn't learn something today or hear something that's inspiring or enlightening, because today was a great show. And that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.
You've been listening to Up in Your Business with Kerry McCoy, a production of flagandbanner.com. If you miss any part of the show or want to learn more about UIYB, go to flagandbanner.com and click on Radio Show, or subscribe to her weekly podcast wherever you like to listen. All interviews are recorded and posted the following week with links to resources you heard discussed on today's show. And Kerry's goal is to help you live the American dream.